I worked the night shift in winter. I'll never do it again. I thought I could handle it. I thought it was just a job. I was wrong. It was mid-January, and the town was buried under one of the worst winters in decades. Snowdrifts blocked the roads, ice glazed the streets, and the sun barely peeked over the horizon for a few hours a day. I was broke and desperate. Anything that paid was tempting. That's how I ended up agreeing to work the night shift at a remote distribution warehouse on the edge of town. The pay was better than minimum wage. The hours were 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The building was old, cold, and mostly empty at night. My supervisor said it was an easy job. Just keep an eye on the cameras, log the temperatures, and do hourly patrols. I should have said no. The first night was unnerving, but nothing happened. The warehouse sat alone, miles from the nearest streetlight. Inside, rows of metal shelves stretched into darkness, and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Every sound seemed magnified. The clink of metal carts, the hum of the heaters, the faint creak of the building settling in the cold. I made my rounds, flashlight in hand, checking the cameras and noting the temperatures. Everything was fine, or at least that's what I told myself. Still, when I walked down the empty aisles, I had the feeling I wasn't alone. Just a flicker of a shadow, or maybe a trick of the light, but enough to make my stomach twist. I laughed it off, told myself it was nerves. By the fifth night, a blizzard rolled in. Snow piled high, wind howled against the building, and the roads became impassable. I was trapped. Not that I minded at first. The pay was good, and I told myself it would be just like any other night. But winter has a way of magnifying isolation. In the storm, even small noises become terrifying. The building groaned and creaked in ways I'd never noticed before. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, casting the aisles in shifting shadows. And that's when I started hearing the footsteps. At first, I tried to ignore it, just the building settling. But the pattern didn't match the creaks or groans. These were slow, deliberate steps, outside the patrol routes I had walked, not echoing off walls randomly. I froze, listened. Step, pause, step, pause. They stopped near the far end of an aisle. I shined my flashlight toward the shelves. Nothing. I checked the cameras. Nothing. I told myself it was my imagination. I really did, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was moving through the warehouse behind me. Around 2 a.m., during my third patrol, I noticed the back door. It was slightly ajar. I was certain I had locked it before starting my shift. My hands shook as I approached. Outside, the snowstorm was fierce. Visibility was near zero. Whoever or whatever had opened the door couldn't have come in without leaving tracks in the snow, and there were none. I checked the camera covering the back entrance. The feed flickered and then froze. When it came back, the door was closed. I logged it in the book, thinking I'd mention it to my supervisor in the morning. I didn't know yet that mentioning it would have made no difference. Around 3:15 a.m., I was in the control room, reviewing camera feeds. That's when I heard it. A soft, raspy voice, barely above a whisper. "Hello?" I froze. Is anyone there? I turned to the aisles, shining my flashlight. Empty. I checked the cameras. Empty. The voice came again, closer this time, like it was right behind me. "I can't get out. It's so cold." Panic gripped me. I backed up towards the control room door. I didn't know whether to run or hide. My rational mind screamed it must be someone trapped outside, but the door was locked and the snow outside was untouched. Then the footsteps returned, but this time inside the building. Slow, deliberate, dragging slightly. The sound echoed off the concrete walls, following my patrol route perfectly. When I stopped, they stopped. When I ran, they matched my pace. I ducked into the break room, hoping to hide. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the hum of the heaters. The door handle rattled softly, then stopped. A shadow passed across the frosted window of the break room. Not human, too tall, too thin. I swallowed my fear and ran back to the control room. By 4 a.m., the cameras started showing things that weren't there. A shape at the end of an aisle, gone the moment I blinked. A door appearing open on screen, then closed when I checked it physically. Once, I waved at a camera feed, and my hand moved out of sync with the image. Every feed became unreliable. Every hallway seemed longer, darker, and emptier than before. I couldn't trust my senses, and I couldn't leave. Snowdrifts had cut off the roads. The longest hour began at 4:30 a.m. Footsteps circled the control room. Whispered breathing echoed faintly. I could hear it pacing the aisles, sometimes stopping, sometimes shuffling furniture slightly, making tiny noises I would have sworn were impossible in the middle of a locked warehouse. I pressed myself against the wall and closed my eyes, trying to slow my breathing. When I opened them, the shadow was there, not moving, just standing, watching. I thought about calling the police, but there was no signal. No one could reach me. I thought about my family, my life, how I'd probably never see the sunrise. At 5:05 a.m., the control room door rattled. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Pause. 3 more. A voice whispered through the gap. "Don't be scared. I just want to help. It's so cold." I didn't answer. I didn't move. The knocks continued for what felt like an eternity, growing slower, more patient, like it knew I couldn't leave, like it had been waiting for me to break. Finally, around 6 a.m., the first weak light of dawn began to pierce the warehouse windows. The shadow disappeared. The footsteps stopped. The voice went silent. I ran outside, the snow crunching under my boots, and didn't look back. There were no footprints leading to or from the warehouse, nothing in the snow to suggest someone had been there at all. When I tried to explain it to my supervisor, he laughed nervously. "Winter nights do strange things to people," he said. I quit that day, without notice, without explanation. Years later, I still remember the cold, the silence, the sound of footsteps that didn't belong to anyone living. Sometimes in winter storms, I swear I hear a whisper in the wind. "Don't be scared. I work nights too." I haven't taken another night shift in winter since. I never will. Because whatever it was in that warehouse, it wasn't human, and it remembered me.
Winter storms are different at night. They don't just block roads, they steal sound, space, and any sense of safety. When you're alone on a night shift during a blizzard, the world feels like it's closing in on you, pressing from every side. I learned that the hard way. It started with a call. I had been looking for extra work. My normal shift barely covered rent, and the forecast promised a brutal storm. The phone rang at 5:42 p.m., and it was my supervisor. "Hey," he said, voice tight. "Dave called in. We need someone tonight at Ridgeway substation. Roads are bad, but I thought maybe you could make it." I didn't even ask questions. I said yes. Ridgeway substation was nothing like a normal job. It was remote, isolated, buried deep in the hills outside town. It monitored power for 3 counties. If it went offline, hospitals and emergency services could lose backup electricity. I didn't care. I needed the money. By the time I left town, snow was already falling hard, sideways, whipped by the wind. Visibility was nearly zero. Streetlights blurred into white haze. Every road sign disappeared under a coating of ice and snow. Halfway there, my phone lost signal. The GPS spun in circles. Radio stations crackled and died. The blizzard was closing in faster than I expected. I kept going. Ridgeway wasn't far, but it might as well have been in another world. The substation appeared out of the storm like a monolith. Concrete walls, floodlights dimmed under heavy snowfall, and an access gate that opened automatically as I approached, then closed behind me with a dull, metallic thud. Inside, the building smelt like cold metal and old machinery. The walls hummed faintly, and fluorescent lights flickered occasionally. It was quiet. Too quiet. A note from the previous night. Wind strong. Unusual noises. Keep monitoring. I shrugged. Probably ice shifting, I muttered. The first few hours were uneventful. Monitors were normal, generators hummed, temperatures stayed within range. But the building had its own sound. Metal groaning, heaters clicking, air ducts whining. In the blizzard, even small noises sounded huge. I walked the hallways every hour with flashlight in hand, logging temperatures and checking doors. Shadows stretched in ways that made it hard to judge distance. Every empty aisle looked like it held something just beyond my sight. Around 1:03 a.m., the exterior motion sensor triggered. Zone C, loading dock. I froze. Zone C wasn't part of my patrol route. The camera feed showed nothing, just snow swirling past the exterior wall. Then a shape appeared. Tall, dark, just beyond the floodlights, too still to be a person. My heart pounded. I leaned closer to the monitor. The shape tilted its head. Then it vanished. I tried to rationalize it. Snowdrift? A shadow? Something I imagined. I told myself yes. Then came the footsteps. Soft, deliberate, pacing through the hallways, not random, not echoing, following a rhythm. Step, pause, step, pause. I gripped my flashlight, stopped. The footsteps stopped. I ran a few feet. They followed, faster. I ducked into the control room, pressed against the wall, heart hammering. The handle rattled lightly. A whisper. "You shouldn't be here alone." I didn't answer. I couldn't. By 2:15 a.m., the storm had reached its peak. Snow piled against the walls, wind screamed, shaking the building. Lights flickered and the emergency generator kicked in with a low hum. The voice came again, this time from the exterior door. "Let me in. It's freezing out here." Impossible. The road was blocked, no footprints, no tracks, and yet the sound was real. Then the footsteps were inside, not outside, inside. Heavy, slow, deliberate, moving down the aisles I hadn't checked yet. I tried to monitor the cameras. Most feeds were black or flickering. One showed a hallway, empty except at the far end, where a dark shape seemed to shift just slightly, watching. I wanted to call for help. Radio dead, phone dead. I wanted to leave. Impossible. Roads closed. Snowdrifts already over my car's tires. At 3:05 a.m., the control room door shook with 3 deliberate knocks. 3 more. Then a pause. Then another 3. A voice whispered through the door. "Don't be afraid. I just want to help." I didn't move. My breath frosted in front of me. The handle rattled again, slowly. "I know you're alone. It's cold. I'll keep you company." I could feel it outside, waiting, patient, watching. I checked the feeds again. Hallway B, empty. Aisle 14, empty. Storage rooms, empty. Yet the sounds persisted, shuffling, footsteps, whispered words I had spoken hours earlier. One feed showed the back door open. I raced there, closed it, checked cameras, closed, locked. Nothing else recorded. Every sense told me I was alone. Every sense told me I wasn't. Around 4:30 a.m., I glanced at the hallway camera. At the end of the corridor stood a figure, tall, thin, limbs bent slightly, wrong, head tilted as if it were listening, eyes human-shaped but wrong. It didn't move, it just waited. When I blinked, it was gone. I wanted to leave, couldn't. The storm wouldn't let me. The longest hours are always before sunrise. I huddled in the control room, clutching a flashlight like a weapon, ears straining for any sound. Footsteps echoed, sometimes stopping outside the door. Whispering followed me down the halls. When I tried to sleep, I could hear it pacing, circling, whispering words I had spoken earlier. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. At 6 a.m., the first weak sunlight filtered through the frost-covered windows. The footsteps stopped. The voice fell silent. I ran outside, snow crunching beneath my boots. No footprints leading to or from the building. Nothing. It was as if whatever had been there never existed. The supervisor shrugged when I called in. "Winter nights mess with people," he said. I quit that day. Never returned. Years later, I remember the cold, the silence, the sense of being followed. Sometimes during winter storms, I swear I hear whispers in the wind, faint and raspy. "You work nights, so do I." I've never worked a night shift in winter again. I never will. Because whatever waited at Ridgeway substation that night, it was patient, it was intelligent, and it remembers.
I've worked night shifts before. I've worked them in heat, in rain, even in loud, crowded places. But winter nights are different. They have a way of making you feel completely alone, even when you're surrounded by walls, lights, and cameras. And there's one night I'll never forget, one night that still haunts me. It was January. The town was buried under snow and temperatures hovered below zero. My rent was due, and my savings were non-existent. A local storage facility was hiring overnight attendants. It wasn't glamorous. Check temperatures, monitor cameras, and make hourly patrols through the building. But the pay was good. I knew it would be lonely. My supervisor warned me. "You'll mostly be alone. Nothing ever happens. Just keep an eye on the systems, log everything, and make your rounds." I nodded, needed the money, said yes. The facility was far from town, past the last streetlights, along a narrow service road flanked by frozen fields. Trees, leafless and blackened by winter, lined the edges, snow clinging to every branch. Inside, the building was colder than it should have been. Not dangerous cold, but persistent. The fluorescent lights hummed, and the long aisles of metal shelves stretched into darkness. Every sound echoed. Every step seemed too loud. The first night passed without incident, but that eerie silence never left me. Even in daylight, I had felt it. At night, alone, it was unbearable. By the fourth night, a storm rolled in. Snow fell sideways, piled high against the walls, and the wind howled through cracks in the building. Roads were quickly becoming impassable. At first, it seemed peaceful. The storm made the building feel insulated, almost cozy. But as the night stretched on, I realized something. Winter storms have a way of amplifying every sound. A dripping pipe sounded like a hammer. A rat scurrying across the floor sounded like footsteps pacing behind me. And then I began hearing footsteps. Step, pause, step, pause. I froze. I wasn't walking. I was in the control room. The sounds came from the aisles outside. My flashlight swept across empty shelves. Nothing. I checked the cameras. Empty. My rational mind told me it was the storm. It wasn't. The pattern didn't match anything natural. The steps moved deliberately, circling, sometimes stopping, sometimes pacing right behind me. I told myself it was my imagination. I wished it were. At 2:30 a.m., I noticed something unusual. The back door, normally locked and sealed, was slightly ajar. I had locked it before my patrol. Outside, snow whipped violently against the door. There was no way someone could have opened it without leaving tracks. I grabbed my flashlight, approached slowly, and checked it. Nothing, just the snow and wind. I slammed the door shut and locked it. Moments later, I heard a whisper. "Hello." I froze. My flashlight shook in my hands. "Is anyone there?" I swung the light across the aisles. Nothing. "Please," the voice continued. "I'm so cold." I backed into the control room, heart hammering. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Then the footsteps began again, but this time they weren't outside the building. They were inside the building. Slow, measured, echoing off the metal shelves. They followed the same rhythm as mine. When I stopped, they stopped. When I moved, they moved. I ran to a break room hoping to hide. The handle rattled softly. A shadow flickered past the frosted window. I couldn't tell if it was real. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to calm my shaking. I tried to rely on the cameras, but the feeds were strange. One showed a hallway empty, while I could hear soft shuffling inside it. Another showed a door open, but it was physically closed when I went to check. I waved at one camera, and the image of my hand moved slightly behind where my actual hand was. I started to realize the building itself was untrustworthy. The hours before dawn were the worst. Time stretched unnaturally. Shadows seemed to move on their own. I could hear whispers repeating my own words spoken hours earlier. Footsteps echoed around me, pacing in and out of empty aisles. At one point, I swore I saw a figure standing at the far end of the control room corridor. Tall, thin, unmoving, tilting its head like it was studying me. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe much. At 3:15 a.m., the control room door shook. 3 deliberate knocks, then a pause, then 3 more. A whisper. "You're alone." I couldn't respond, couldn't move. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break through my chest. The handle rattled again. "I know you're here," the voice said. "It's cold. I'll keep you company." I stayed pressed to the wall, praying it would leave. It didn't. Finally, around 6 a.m., weak sunlight began to filter through the frosted windows. The footsteps stopped. The voice went silent. The building was empty again. I ran outside, snow crunching beneath my boots, and didn't look back. No footprints, no tracks in the snow. Nothing. When I called my supervisor, he laughed nervously. Winter nights mess with people. Stress, fatigue, isolation. Happens every year. I quit that day. Years have passed. I work day shifts now. I live somewhere warmer. I avoid snowstorms whenever I can. But I still remember the cold, the footsteps, the voice. Sometimes, when winter storms hit and the wind screams outside, I hear faint knocking or whispering. And sometimes, I swear I hear it say, "You work nights, so do I." I haven't worked another night shift in winter since. I never will, because whatever it was that night, it wasn't human, and it remembers me. If the shadows of tonight still haunt you, make sure you stay with me, Mr. Horror Man. Hit subscribe, or you might hear me whisper in the dark. Until next time, sleep tight.